Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And what if I told you that Thor might be the fastest farmer in the game now? Yeah. Over the next minute or so, you're going to be seeing Thor ripping through the final, for now, stage of Dispatch. The hardest Dispatch stage we have in the game. Try to say that 5 times fast. With White Fox support and Valkyrie. Now, one big criticism you're going to notice immediately of this team is, Alex, why did you use Thor's lead? Why is Thor in the lead spot? With Dispatch, unlike Dimension Rift farming or any other farming, you don't have to put the character in the lead position who is going to do damage because all 3 characters are there at the same time. So you can take advantage of White Fox's leadership, and that can increase the all defense down and the lightning resistance down of Thor's attacks and the all defense down of Valkyrie and White Fox's attacks. That's true. If that's what you were typing in the comment section, you should hit enter, my friend, because I'm going to heart that comment because you're right. However, there is an explanation for why Thor is in the lead, and furthermore, that's what makes him such a good farmer. Now, part of this strategy actually involves investing in the legendary battle for Thor Love and Thunder. So if that seems expensive for you, you're also going to need to get Thor's new uniform, and you're also going to need to get Thor to at least level 80. He could probably do this at level 80. He can definitely do this at tier 4. He's a great tier 4 for a lot of other reasons. But again, if farming is your main goal, if you're just trying to rip through this content as fast as possible to burn energy, etc., Thor is an amazing investment. You know, this is really where I think he shines the most, and definitely where he can outshine Iron Man, both Iron Man and Moon Knight, and we're not even going to talk about Storm. So he gets that done in a very respectable 90 seconds, 94 seconds. There are faster teams, I will admit that. If I put Iron Man next to Thor and I put Moon Knight next to Thor, obviously a completely busted team if you have MasterCard and Visa at your side, but that team can do it in a minute. But that's obviously like extreme whale bait. I'm not going to be making a video about how putting 3 tier 4s on your team is the best farming team. Like, that's ridiculous. But I'm glad that I can use this team because I believe even if you were to swap to old Valkyrie uniform, and even if you were to swap to the non-paywall White Fox uniform, this team will still perform very well for you. I think the biggest indicator of whether the team performs well for you is the following things. Of course, your cards, of course. But then if you have Thor level 80 versus tier 4, that's going to be the biggest jump. If you have a CTP of Rage on him, because I think this one is going to perform the best for farming. And then the other key here is whether you have gone through the legendary battle, you've paid the 2,500 crystals, or you got very lucky opening those Celestial Essence chests and you managed to pull a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6-star version of Thor's artifact. Now, why am I highlighting Thor's artifact? Because especially if he's tier 4, right, the instinct is off the charts when you get to tier 4. You can see he's over 3,500 instinct. And you go ahead and you look at that artifact, and what does it do? Well, you can't read it because my goofy face is in the way. Anyways, the part that's cut off is that it increases damage to supervillains by 8% and another 0.3% of instinct. So that 8%, the point 3 here, if we pull up the calculator, if you do 3,500 times 0.003, that's another 10%. So he's actually at 18, almost 19% increased damage to villains just for himself, just based on his instinct. But the one that I want to focus on more is that it increases his lightning damage by 20% of his resistance and then an additional 0.3% of his instinct. And we know that's going to add an additional 10%. So then 20% of whatever his lightning resistance is, one fifth, right? So we go ahead and look at this team. His leadership gives him 50 lightning resist. And then we go ahead and look here. So he's actually, my Thor is rocking 75, almost 76% lightning resist. So we take 75, we multiply it by 0.2, that's 15. We know we're going to add another 10 to that. So he's at about 27, 26, 27, or 20, 25, 26% lightning damage. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's almost half of Beta Ray Bill's leadership. It's not bad at all. So that's the cool part here. And then he can still get all of the buffs that he would get from White Fox. Now, for Dispatch, you could argue that for Dispatch, maybe it's better to do this, and maybe I could actually shave down a few seconds for my clear time, but just to keep it simple, this team is so good because now Thor gives himself a buff. It's a self-buffing leadership. as long as you have the artifact. And if you have the artifact at a higher level, at a 5-star, or if you're lucky enough to get it at 6-star, and for those of you who don't have it at all, you can maybe start waiting for Black Friday, because then you can use the bingo system, and you can do that without spending too many crystals. The bingo system is actually not as expensive as we once thought. You can end up getting a 5-star selector or a 6-star selector. The 6-star gives him 30% of his resistance instead of 20%. So if I just take my existing numbers, okay, not trying to imagine some sort of random Thor that I don't have, but my Thor. So we take that same 75% lightning resist, we multiply it now by 0.3, that's 22.5. But now we take my existing 3,500 instinct, and instead of multiplying it by 0.3%, we're multiplying it by 0.5%. So you take 3,500. It'll actually be more than that because of this artifact giving him more instinct, but we're not gonna calculate that. Another 17.5%. So what that means is a 6-star artifact for Thor will be giving him at least 40% lightning damage, plus another like 37% increased damage to villains. It's crazy. It's almost a 40-40. 40% lightning damage and 40% increased damage to villains. So it's giving him a leadership and a passive buff all in one. It's crazy strong for farming. And again, it's all thanks to just using the artifact and then using his leadership at tier 4. So let me show you now what this looks like in a dimension rift. We're just gonna, we have a heroic one here with 12 minutes left. Sure, let's just jump into this heroic one here. We're gonna go ahead and progress rewards, that's fine. We're just gonna go ahead and jump into this one for 12 minutes. It's fine. I don't really run rifts anymore. Well, now and then when someone opens a very high level rift, like a heroic or mythic or legendary. But look at this. He just rushes through this content. Really, the only skill that Thor doesn't that doesn't do well for farming is his 5th skill, and you will notice it from time to time, where he's standing by himself, holding the Stormbreaker, and then when he slams down and he comes out of iframe, then the mobs rush in and they take all the lightning damage. So really, his 5th skill is the only thing that holds him back. But honestly, if his 5th skill wasn't like that, he would probably be too fast. He's so fast ripping through this content. Look at this. He's just crushing it. And this is the best part, because all of the Loki teams that we suggested for running Dimension Rifts, and again, I know Loki's a much cheaper investment than tier 4 Thor. I recognize that. But all of those teams, you either sacrifice a ton of damage by putting Loki in the lead, or you have to switch. At the beginning of every mission, you have to switch. Okay, so we're not going to use the Wolverine. We're not going to use the Loki team anymore. Let's use Thena with Valkyrie and White Fox. You think Thena can clear the stage in 45 seconds? And again, Thena has to have a rage. She's got Odin's Blessing. She needs her artifact as well, right? The only difference between her and Thor is Thor costs more tier 4, but Thena costs like 10,000 crystals up front, because you got to buy Makari, you got to buy Gilgamesh. So, and I already said before in a previous video when I talked about best farming teams, this was before Thor, but after Iron Man tier 4, I said, if you're graduating from the Loki teams, don't go to the Thena teams, because at this point, Iron Man's cheaper than Thena. At this point, Thor's even better than Iron Man, specifically for farming. So this is our new farming god, and hopefully he will be for a while, because it's really fun to just sit here and watch him decimate crowd after crowd. And it's so thematic because most of the Dimension Rifts feature Asgardian villains in some way or another. So I actually really like that. But he just shreds this content. Like, I was shocked. Look at this. He obliterates his dad. He just beats the ever-living snot right out of his father and puts him into an Odin sleep that he'll never forget. Except that as soon as this page loads, he wakes up from his Odin sleep and he gets put back into another Odin sleep. It's a bit of a Groundhog Day situation all around. But overall, I'm really impressed with Thor, and I really like, as much as I have a lot of other criticisms for the game lately, I do really like how they've reincorporated the value of artifacts. And sure, a 6-star artifact gives you more buffs, but even a 4-star artifact with seemingly, average or mediocre run-of-the-mill buffs, when you can invest it to tier 4, it then unlocks that value there. So even if you have an artifact on a character and you're like, well, this artifact doesn't really do anything, eventually, hopefully, that character will get a tier 4, and then that value will unlock further. There's a bit of a caveat as long as it has that line at the bottom that says, you know, plus an additional percent of instinct, a percent of total instinct. But I do like that they've done that, because the alternative was this weird in-between space where artifacts were either like obviously overpowered, like Wolverines and Hellas and stuff like that, or just trash, right? Just straight up trash. And so, and one that I would like to see them rework, I believe it's Luna's. I don't know if Luna's artifact, actually, I should have looked this up before I said this, but I'm not sure if Luna's artifact converts. I think it does convert her cold resist into, it does actually. So what I would like to see them do, if they're going to rework Luna rather than reworking the artifact. So basically Luna's artifact is the same as Thor's, or similar to Thor's, and similar to Robbie Reyes's, which I think all of these are cool, because converting your resistance into attack. Actually, Iceman's is the same. The difference is Luna doesn't have this leadership, whereas Thor does, right? So it's the combination of the leadership and the artifact working together that I think is really, really cool, and I think they should do more of, because otherwise, let's be honest, these leaderships are useless. Lightning, 50% lightning resist, 50% fire resist. It's like okay for Mephisto a little bit, but you know, realistically, 50% mind resist. Like a lot of these, you know, resist leaderships are terrible. But when they introduce these artifacts and get these characters tier 4s, it's a completely different story. So you've seen enough. You've seen 4 runs there. He averages about 45 seconds on each run. He completely blitzes it, and he does this for every single dispatch stage. Furthermore, you could take your tier 3 level 80 Thor, and again, you can plop him in as the lead for all of your story mode fragment farming if you don't have all 3 of the recommended characters, right? Like if you're an account that's still building up, this is advice for newer players, not for veterans. If you're an account that's still building up, you build this team, right? You're like, okay, these are the tier 3s that are the transcendent characters that I have, that I don't want them to be in the leadership position. You got Venom, you got Clea, because they, they're featured in the leadership position if you go through some of these missions, and they're gonna die. But then instead of putting, let's say you don't have Corvus, so you put your level 80 Thor in here. So anytime you're missing one of the characters, it's going to put Thor in the lead. This advice is what I gave you guys a year ago for Human Torch. Human Torch runs through the story mode missions super fast. You know who else runs through them super fast now? Our boy Thor. Same idea. Same idea. I can't show you because I have all the characters for story mode, so it's never going to slot in Thor instead of another character. Unless, of course, it's a mission where Thor is featured, in which case it sort of defeats the purpose of doing this. But yeah, for those of you who don't have that many tier 3 and transcended, but if you have someone like Thor, someone who can clear really fast, put them in the leadership slot, and then go like this and go like this and press start. And then anytime you don't have whoever the leadership character would be, like the character that's left most, it'll put Thor in their place. He'll be the lead. He'll buff himself if you have the artifact, and he's just gonna rip through the content. I'm actually really happy with Thor's tier 4. I think they did a really good job, and they did really good justice to both Thor and Iron Man. Moon Knight, still a little bit salty about the animations, and then we all know how I feel about Storm. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. But it's nice to have some change up in the auto farming era, because Loki was dominating that for like a year, and it was getting a bit boring. So yeah, his brother finally took over. Thanks so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.